Hello everybody and welcome to this week's edition of Pinto's Preview on 740thefan.com and kfgo.com. And of course this week, like every week, I'll give you 3 points to look for in the NDSU football team's upcoming game. This weekend, South Dakota State down in Brookings. Should be a good one between the Jackrabbits and the Bison, a rivalry game if that's what you want to call it, but we might get into that later. First, however, let's look back at last week's victory over Delaware State, a 51-0 victory for NDSU that set Carson Wentz and the backups in before the end of the first half. So NDSU had a hold on Delaware State. They knew what they were doing and had already moved on and was getting ready for this big game, the opener of the Missouri Valley Football Conference against South Dakota State down in Brookings. So without any further ado, let's get into my 3 points for this week's game between NDSU and South Dakota State University. The first point I want to make is South Dakota State University's defense is bad. Now, head coach Craig Bohl was asked earlier this week about what are you going to do to try to exploit the bad pass defense? And he said, well, frankly, they've had a lot of teams trying to play catch-up against them. That is the reason why that you see such a disparity in the passing defense numbers. But I'll counter that by saying they've given up 470 yards of offense per game against the University of North Dakota, 400 and some passing yards against the University of North Dakota. That's what they gave up at the Alara Center a couple weeks back. This defense is not that good. They're not putting a lot of pressure on the quarterback. They're giving up huge chunks of yard per play. I think that's going to be obviously an advantage for NDSU. They're going to have to take advantage of it. Now, NDSU's offense is not a big play offense, but if the opportunity arises, I think they're going to be able to take advantage of it. Second point I want to make is Coughlin Alumni Stadium and the field conditions in Brookings, South Dakota, Saturday. 2 o'clock kickoff, but you have to remember, one, high school football game Friday night, and then follow that up with a high percentage of rain. I think it's 90 to 100% chance of rain from about 11 o'clock tonight until 11 in the morning tomorrow. So that 12-hour period after the field has already been pretty torn up, it's going to get soggy, it's going to get wet, it's going to get pretty gross. 2 o'clock kickoff, let's see how the field looks after kind of all the preparation they do with it, but is it going to disadvantage or give an advantage to one team or the other? I don't think so. They both like to run the ball. They both like ball control. Defensively, they're pretty stout. At least NDSU is. I don't think there's going to be an advantage or disadvantage either way. But it is something to look for Saturday at 2 o'clock when these two teams kick off. Third point I want to make is Zach Zenner and how scary good the running back for SDSU is. Guy's averaging 185 yards per game, over 700 yards of rushing offense, 10 touchdowns, had 202 yards against Nebraska last week. He's going to be a point of emphasis for this NDSU defense. Now, last year in 2 games in the Fargo Dome, Zenner had a total of about 85 yards. Didn't even get over combined 90 yards against this NDSU defense. Very good. They're very stout. He is a tough running back to stop, but NDSU has figured him out. However, NDSU hasn't really faced him in Brookings. We'll see how this game goes, but he, again, is going to be the guy that NDSU keys on when it comes to SDSU being on offense. Finally, the X factor for this game, and then I have 2 of them actually. Levon Perry, defensive tackle for NDSU, and then Colton Hegel, one of the safeties for NDSU. Now, they didn't see a lot of action against South Dakota State last year. Both were injured. Of course, Levon Perry was injured in the regular season game against the Jackrabbits. Colton Hegel was injured much earlier on in the season, but these guys are very good against the run. Levon Perry, probably the best defensive tackle NDSU has, and we all know how good Colton Hegel is at stopping the run. So if South Dakota State wants to have ball control and get big chunks of yards like they're used to on the run, they're going to have to figure out a way to block both Perry and Colton Hegel. And now, my prediction for the game. People think it's going to be tight. I say NDSU wins 24-13, and the score really makes it seem like it's going to be closer than it is. South Dakota State's defense is not that good. NDSU is going to be able to have their way with them. And then defensively, NDSU will be able to stop Zenner, since they're pretty much the only team that has been able to stop Zenner the last year and plus. So I've got NDSU winning this game 24-13, winning the first game in the Missouri Valley Conference, and then coming back home next week to take on an even better opponent than South Dakota State in northern Iowa. For 740thefan.com and kfgo.com, I'm Gunderson.